Hi. Okay, so I'm going to go over the organelles and how to label an animal cell and a plant cell. So once again, just a reminder, they took this standard away from what I'm supposed to be teaching you at this point because they assume that when you come to me, you're going to have all of this memorized and have a complete understanding of how all of these things work together very well before you ever step through my door. And from the conversation that we've had with one another, I can gauge that that is not true and that you do not remember either what these things are or what these things do. So thus, I want you to label them in your unit packet today. And I'm going to label them with you and try to give you some sort of heads up on what's super important, what's semi-important, and probably what's not so important for you at this point in your life. Okay, so this little gumball at the middle right there. That's going to be number 1 right here. Okay, and that's going to be something called a nucleolus. So nucleolus. There we go. I don't think there's much for you to do with the nucleolus at this point in your educational experience. You may hear me reference it in passing, but I don't think I've ever tested any kid on what the function of a nucleolus does by itself. So rest assured, you should be safe without absolutely memorizing that. Okay, 2. 2 is pointing sort of in this region here. And that's the one you're probably familiar with. So let me put that up here. That's your nucleus, and that is one you definitely need to know. All right. It's where your DNA is housed. It's super, super important. Sometimes they call it the brain of your cell. It's not the brain of your cell. It just houses all of the blueprints that make you who you are physically as a person. Personality thus far has not been traced down to genetic makeup. Okay, and then 3, let's see here. 3 looks like it's just pointing to the very outside there. And so that, let me move my face out of the way. That is going to be your nuclear membrane. So nuclear membrane. Okay. All right. And then let's jump colors again. What color should we pick? Let's pick blue. All right. So let's find number 4. Where's number 4? There we are. All right. So what number 4 is pointing to, oh, blue's not going to be a good choice for this one. Let's pick something else. What 4 is pointing to are these circles right there. They are actually holes in the nucleus right there. And so what those are called nuclear pores. So let me see if I can move that over there. Nuclear pore, P-O-R-E. And it works similarly to a pore on your face or anywhere in your body. So if you zoom in to your skin will look a lot like this in the sense of these little tiny holes, these little tiny dots. And you've probably heard in some skincare commercials or something, oh, it'll help clean your pores, it opens up your pores, or it closes your pores, and they claim all of these things. The pores in your skin let things in and out of your skin. And I know you're thinking, there's nothing going into my skin. That's not true. So every time you have a zit, which at this age, it seems like those are plentiful, right? A zit is basically bacteria has gotten into one of your pores and it's infected. And that makes a zit. And so disgusting as it may be, when you pop a zit, the white things that come out are actually like the infection. And so you don't always think of infections that way, but basically it's just bacterial growth in one of your little pores, in one of the little holes. let's see what else. If you didn't have these pores, you would pretty much boil to death from the inside every time that you got really hot or had a fever. And so these pores allow water, which we know as sweat, to come out, which is a good thing. And so it relieves some of the toxins and the body heat through these pores. And so you have pores as well. So these nuclear pores, what they're for is to allow something called RNA to leave the nucleus. And that's something that we probably won't talk about until January. But just so you know, that's what a nuclear pore does. It lets RNA leave, but nothing really comes in. It's just a one-way street, really. Okay, so let's see here. 5. So 5 is up here. And it's pointing to these little tiny freckle-looking things here. Okay, 5. 5 is what we call a free ribosome. And what we mean by that is that they sort of float freely in the cytoplasm. They're not tied down to anything. They're not attached to anything. They just kind of float. All right, let's see. Number 6. All right, so number 6. Number 6 is pointing to what looks very similar to number 5, but these are on this sort of melted gum looking surface here. These are going to be attached ribosomes. So they would be the counterpart to our free ribosome. All right. And they are always attached. They don't break off and become free, and the free ones don't become attached, really, as far as you need to know in your life. Attached ones stay attached, and free ones stay free, and that's all you need to know. You will need to know the function of ribosomes at some point. That day is not today, so you can take a deep breath. But basically, they look like sprinkles. One of you asked me a really good question the other day, or maybe it was somebody today. They said, well, how do you know the difference? A pore in this picture looks very similar to a ribosome. So what you need to remember is that ribosomes are all things coming out of the cell. Pores are just holes. It looks like Swiss cheese. You can see through them, that sort of thing. But these ribosomes, they're external, like they push out. And in that way, I described to the student, a pore is like the pore in your face, and a ribosome acts more like a zit. It's more of a protrusion on the outside of a surface than it is a hole in a surface. Sorry, I'm talking so much about zits today. It just is what it is. Okay. Number 7. Let's see if I can get my 7 right there. Okay, 7 is a Golgi. And it can be a Golgi body or a Golgi apparatus. I don't care what you call it. You can also just say Golgi, and it's fine. Okay, 8. 8 is what I rant about most days, it seems. All right, so 8 looks like a wrinkly bean of some kind. 8 is going to be that mitochondria. Remember, mitochondria can sometimes be called mitochondrion. I'm not going to write it that way because y'all will never remember that. Okay, mitochondria. I believe this is the point in my life where you stop and you shout at me, "It's the powerhouse of the cell!" Here's the thing. Please stop yelling that. You don't know what it means. And unless you can tell me what it means to be the powerhouse of a cell, I don't know who brainwashed you, right? I don't know who was like, it's the powerhouse of the cell. You need to remember that. And then you were all hypnotized, and that's all you remember from 5th grade. Like, let's erase it. And just tell me it's a mitochondria. You don't have to tell me it's the powerhouse of the cell. You really don't. Until you know what that means, which you don't at this point in the school year. But I promise I will teach you before you leave me what that means. Okay. All right, so let's do these two right here. They look like little pasta or little cubes in some way. That one and that one. These are called centrioles. And these are responsible for animal cell division. It's a good time to stop and tell you that most of your cell division is asexual. I know that when people are talking about organisms, you think, okay, well, this organism reproduces sexually. But honestly speaking, most of your reproduction that ever happens with your body ever is asexual, meaning that you just take a cell and you just clone it over and over again. Because think about how many millions of skin cells you must lose every day or every week. And those have to be replaced by the identical skin cells underneath them. You would never want those to try to mutate their DNA on their own. We'll talk about what happens if you damage your DNA and what happens when mutations occur. Okay, number 9. Number 9 is pointing to what looks like melted gum. It's pointing to this whole wrinkly mess in there. And that would be the rough ER. And ER stands for endoplasmic reticulum. No, you don't have to remember endoplasmic reticulum. You can just say ER and you're set. It's called rough because it has ribosomes on its surface, and it looks like if you ran your hand over it, it would be like and it looks like it would be rough or bumpy, and that's why it's called the rough ER. Okay, so I've done that one. Let's jump all the way over to 10. And it's got this smooth, melted Laffy Taffy looking stuff, and that's called a smooth ER. So the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. It's always drawn differently than the rough ER. It will never have ribosomes on its surface. I don't really think we're going to go into detail about the smooth ER and its functions much at all this year. So it's not one that I would like gold star in your notes or anything. Okay. I think that's it for animals. Moving on to plants. Okay, so in plant cells, most of them are identical to the ones that are in animal cells. So I'm only going to label the different pieces that animal cells do not have. Okay, so let's see some obvious differences here. It's a different shape, right? Animal cells tend to be circular in nature. They're not perfect little circles like a lot of graphics try to make them out to be, but they're circular-ish. The plant cell doesn't look like a circle. It looks like a fortress. Like there's a big wall that nobody wants people to come in or whatever. It looks like that, and plant cells often look like that. Sometimes a lot of the ones I've encountered under the microscope are rectangular. Like they literally look like tiny little jail cells. And that's actually where cells got their name, is that the guy who discovered cells looked under a microscope at a piece of cork, which is made from plants, right? And he said, oh my goodness, that they look like tiny rooms, and this whole thing looks like a tiny prison, and they look like little jail cells or little prison cells. And so legitimately, your body cells are named after prison cells. Not even kidding, can't make it up. That's the way it is. Okay, so let's name the stuff that's different then. All right, let's move my face. All right, so let's start with 12. 12 is different. Okay, 12 is a cell wall. Plants have a cell wall. Animals do not. Cell walls keep plants from being able to move around, like as far as locomotion. So when you hear that word, it means like you can swim, you can walk, you can literally transport yourself from this space way over there. Plants obviously can't do that. Plants can sway and they shift to find the sun, and that's called phototropism, but they don't actually get up and walk off like they do in the movies, right? So the cell wall, what it does for them is they also don't have bones, and so it keeps their structure like fairly solid without them having to have bones or calcium deposits, but it also keeps them from being able to move around. Animals do not have this. Most of us have bones, I'm trying to think. There are a couple of animal cells that do not have bones, and they also do not have cell walls, and they swim with like a weird tail adaptation instead. All right. 13. We got to make it green. 13. All right, so there's 13. These are chloroplasts. Okay, so these are responsible for photosynthesis. Animals do not photosynthesize, and so thus we do not actually have them or need them in any way. These chloroplasts, if anything has a chloroplast, it's what's called an autotroph. And that means that it makes its own food energy from the sun, and it doesn't eat other stuff. We are heterotrophs, and that means we have to consume some sort of other food source in order to get energy for ourselves, but plants don't do that. Okay, there's one more that's pretty different, and that is this giant swimming pool looking bubble in there. Let me move out of the way. There it is. So this structure here, right there, that is going to be a central vacuole. Okay, it holds water. It holds digestive enzymes, I think. It's going to hold food for the plant temporarily. It also kind of fills up the middle of the cells to keep plants upright, sort of. And so it helps with cellular pressure. When the central vacuole in plants is running low and it shrinks, you lose something called turgor pressure, and your plants start to wilt, right? They just flop over. And then you water them, and what happens is the plant sucks it up, and through capillary action, it will eventually fulfill all the cells. It will fill them with water, and so then that thing inflates again, and so the plant stands back up. And so that's part of why that happens. Okay, I don't see any other differences that I need to label. It still has a membrane. It still has mitochondria. It has a smooth ER, a rough ER, a nucleus, free ribosomes, attached ribosomes, a Golgi apparatus, cytoplasm. It has all of these things. It just also has a cell wall, chloroplast, and a central vacuole. And that makes it different than animals. Animals have centrioles, which is the pink and the little pasta-looking things right here. That is something that plants do not have. And so that makes animals have one thing that plants don't have, and plants have three things that animals don't have. And so those are the main differences between plant and animal cells. I would like to make a note that animals do have vacuoles, but they're different. So let me see if I can. And we also have something called lysosomes, which it didn't ask us to label. So I'm just going to color in some things. So we have these little pink things right there, and then these little blue masses. And some of those are going to be lysosomes. So let me write that somewhere up here. Okay. Lysosome. And they're like the little garbage men of the cell. And then we also have vacuoles. But our vacuoles are very different, and we have lots and lots of them. We don't have a big central one or anything like that. Okay, so that should finish labeling pages 1 and 2 in your cells packet. If you have time, you might get started on page 3 as far as the function of those organelles. You can Google them. It's not hard to find them. And then when you come back to me, we will discuss the functions of each of these, and we will draw them. And then we will also talk about bacteria, antibiotics, antibiotic resistance, and all kinds of stuff, and why antibiotics don't work on viruses. So if you need me, please email me. I may not be able to get back to you until, let me check the schedule, probably 2-ish. I've got a bunch of meetings and stuff going on. So I will talk to you between 2 and 4 if you need me. So anyway, I'll see you soon. Bye.